Konnichiwa. This is the Shogunstein. This is an unboxing of Core of Discovery, a game set in the world of Manifest Destiny, which is a comic book. I read one comic of it. I got it at Phoenix Comic Con a few years ago. This is a game set in that universe of the comic book, which is, kind of like a monster, zombie take on the Core of Discovery, which was Lewis and Clark. If you remember, Thomas Jefferson, the Empire of Liberty, he initially wanted to buy the port of New Orleans, and Napoleon, well, he had a uprising in Haiti, very important revolution. People don't realize just how important the revolution in Haiti was. Unlike a lot of the other Latin American revolutions against the Spanish, the Haitian Revolution was against the French, and it didn't come from the Creole class. It came from the slaves, Toussaint Louverture. It was a slave rebellion against the French, and it was very expensive in terms of troops and money for Napoleon, which has a tremendous effect on the United States. So obviously very important in Haiti, Toussaint Louverture, the revolution there, slave rebellion against the French. Napoleon, well, Jefferson was interested in New Orleans. Napoleon said, hey, we can give you the whole Louisiana purchase at a crazy price, crazy low price, about 1804. And remember, Jefferson was someone who disagreed with Hamilton. He didn't think the Constitution could be stretched. He thought of the Constitution as a pair of like skinny jeans, whereas Hamilton saw it as a pair of like those Lululemon yoga pants that can stretch, the elastic clause. Jefferson was strict interpretation, and he did not believe that if it wasn't written directly in the Constitution that the federal government could do it. Strict interpretation. He was against the bank. So he was very conflicted with this offer of the Louisiana Purchase because he didn't think he had the power to do it. But it was such a good price from Napoleon, and it would have doubled, and it did double the size of the United States. It's too good a deal. So ironically, Jefferson uses the very bank he opposed, Alexander Hamilton's National Bank, to fund the Louisiana Purchase. But like some of those, loot boxes that you get at Comic-Con, as well as a comic book, which again is where I read one edition of the comic, he didn't know what he got. So the Core of Discovery, Lewis and Clark, will be sent to go see what we purchased. Can we get to the Northwest Passage? Can we get to the Pacific? What exactly did we buy? And the very famous, very successful Lewis and Clark journey. And it did also show, with the help of people like Sacagawea, that there was the possibility of a good relationship between the United States and the Indians. The Indians and Lewis and Clark got along pretty well. Again, they got help from Sacagawea. And, again, it's one of those maybe lost opportunities of what could have been relations between the Indians and the United States. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way, but it was a glimpse at what might have been possible. So again, this game is set in that universe of the comic, which is a take on Lewis and Clark. Obviously, they didn't fight monsters and minotaurs and things like that, but it might as well have been going out into the unknown. And it's an interesting theme. It's an interesting concept. Again, I got to check out the comic book some more, but I do like historical themes. It's nice to see a game. And again, it's 1 to 4 players. What I've read is it's better as a solo game. They're showing 45 to 75 minutes, ages 14 plus. Again, 1 to 4 players. This is the retail edition. We picked it up off Amazon for about $39. I think there is a Kickstarter edition that maybe has some extra maps and some, maybe some upgraded pieces. But I do like the fact that it actually has people in it. This isn't, the way board gaming is going, it would be like dogs and cats, Lewis and Clark. And, they're just so afraid these days in board gaming of actually having people in it or actually dealing with a historical theme. So again, obviously this has a sci-fi, horror, fantasy kind of angle to it with the whole idea of the monsters and things. But the fact is, it's still a historical event, and it did have a big impact on what's going to happen with the Native Americans and the United States. Again, the United States doubles, so some people will say that the Louisiana Purchase, and shortly after, when we kind of take Florida from the Spanish and British, depending how you look at it, with Andrew Jackson, the start of, again, this empire of liberty, basically, was there in American imperialism? The idea of manifest destiny, like Sade says, coast to coast, LA to Chicago. No, coast to coast, the Atlantic to the Pacific. The idea that the United States had a destiny from God, kind of like the Blues Brothers, to go coast to coast. LA to Chicago. And that some people will say that, manifest destiny started with, again, the Louisiana Purchase, the road of a type of imperialism, American imperialism, which will have, the Louisiana Purchase, the acquisition of Florida, 54-40 or fight with the Oregon Territory, the war with Mexico, the Spanish-American War. So some people see this as imperialistic. Again, we did buy it from Napoleon, but I do like the fact that we actually have a semi-historical theme here, because unfortunately in board gaming, you got that very small self-appointed leadership class in board gaming that has decided that we can't have historical themes, we can't have people in games, everything's got to be, cow sheriffs and, dog farmers, and we can't have historical themes. I like historical themes in games. Again, I think this whole time period, Manifest Destiny, Lewis and Clark. And again, I don't know the comic that well, so I can't speak to, what's in the comic other than that one edition that I saw. But I do like the fact that you can kind of play on these historical themes and have fun with it. That's the whole idea of board gaming, is to have fun. Not everything has to be a Howard Zinn lecture in moral equivalency. It is kind of fun to just, flip some cards, roll some dice, and not everything has to be, history lecture. I do have a side hustle in history, and I do like having those discussions in that kind of form. Sometimes I just want to chuck some dice. So I'm over here now. So anyway, this is the Core of Discovery. This is the base game, the retail edition. There are some additional maps that you can get. Let's take a look at what we got here. We have some kind of instructions, and I think there's a training module. So they're telling us what we got here. I'm looking for the apology. I got that Ticket to Ride legacy game, and they had an apology in there, that they had a theme of the Old West. Hopefully there's no apology here. So there's a lot of stuff in this rule book, but hopefully it's thorough. I heard in one video this game being described almost like the old game on the old Windows, the Minesweeper. So it'd be interesting to see how that is. I remember the Minesweeper. It was back in the days when you played Doom or Castle Wolfenstein. All right, so this is the rule book. There is a training scenario to kind of learn the game. All right. And again, there are some other maps that you can get for it. And I guess with the Kickstarter, you could get even more maps. Now, this kind of worries me a little bit that there was an oopsie. So there are some things to fix, but at least they got to it. So that's the oopsie. Again, this is the retail edition, so we got, just cardboard already punched. We got cardboard. Get some meeples. Different cards. A tret. Okay, we got our different, scenarios here. Some more cards. player aids. Manifest Destinies. Board. This is where it's a little bit like the Minesweeper. And some things to punch. Well, looking forward to trying this, and I'm going to be trying it solo. And we'll let you know what we think. Like the theme. Doesn't look like it's too much here. It looks like, too much meaning it doesn't look like it'd be like a crazy setup. And, a lot of these games lately, half hour to set it up, which is ridiculous. So, looking forward to playing Core of Discovery. And get ready to talk about the Empire of Liberty. Thomas Jefferson, Lewis and Clark. This is the Shogunstein out.